You know, we live in a time and an age when we are constantly inundated with news. We're constantly barraged with things happening. In the last few weeks, even months, we've been presented with images of violence unlike generations past would have even been able to imagine. And not only that, but we don't have to wait until the 6 o'clock news anymore to find out about things, right? It's happening in real time. And so if you're just trying to process, what is going on in our world and what's happening, you're not alone. And that's why we want to help you. We want to give you resources, and this series is designed to do that. We want to talk about things that help us to take care of ourselves, because that's very important, is to take care of ourselves. But also, you know what's even as important as that? Is that we need to take care of one another, right? We live in this world where we don't want to feel isolated. We want to have relationships, and we want to take care of one another. And so as we go through this series on mental health and emotions, if you're there thinking, you know what, I'm all good, I really don't need this. First of all, I would ask, are you living in the same world that I'm in? I mean, are you in the same place that I'm on? But secondly, if you really are in a good place, these are some things that can help you to help others in your world and in your spheres of influence. And today's topic, I think, is very, very key. It's very important. We're going to talk about emotional numbness and when we get overwhelmed with all these things. And one of the things we're also providing for you is some resources in our community. And that's why each week we're highlighting a Christian counselor in our community that's going to help us talk through some of these issues. So this morning, would you welcome our new friend, Tiffany Williams. Tiffany, would you come up and join us? Join me on the stage here. There you go. Tiffany, thank you so much for taking out your time and coming to be with us today. Why don't you just give us a brief introduction to, where your practice is, what you do, and maybe like a specific passion that you have when it comes to counseling.
Absolutely. So like you said, my name is Tiffany Williams. I'm an LPC Associate, and I work at Willow Creek Counseling. We're located in Keller, off Keller Parkway and Roof Snow Drive, right next to Keller High School, so super close nearby. I work with adolescents, teens, adults with a variety of different issues, whether it's anxiety, depression, relationship issues. And a particular passion of mine is working with athletes. I love working with student athletes of all ages, of all levels. Being a former collegiate softball player, that I love to bring sports and athletics into my sessions. I work with athletes on managing pressure, managing burnout, performance anxiety, all that comes with being an athlete in this day and age. And so I really just love to work with people to help them grow, to help them heal and live a balanced and meaningful life.
That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us today. And our topic is emotional numbness and feeling stuck. So why don't you start off by just giving us kind of an overview. What does it mean when we say emotional numbness, and kind of give us the outline of what that is from a psychological perspective.
Right. So emotional numbness is when we lose access to our natural emotional responses. So instead of feeling as much joy, as much sadness, anger, it just all kind of feels blank. A good example or metaphor that I have is when you start to dissociate a little bit. So have you ever been driving to the grocery store and then suddenly you get there and you're like, how did I get here? Was that light green back there? That state of dissociation is the more minuscule part of it, but the more emphasized part that we concentrate on is that emotional numbness, when you don't feel as much of that emotional response. It happens when we are flooded with big emotions. It's our way of coping with it. And so it's a survival mechanism that we have within our sympathetic nervous system. So last week I know Jonathan mentioned that fight or flight, that when we're faced with a bear, we either fight him or we run, right? And so the third one that we have is freezing. So when we freeze, that is our emotional numbing, that our brain unconsciously is helping us when we are overloaded with far too much, we don't feel anything at all. Initially, it can be very, very helpful because it helps to calm that overwhelmed mind. But over time, it can lead to unhealthy behaviors that have serious consequences for our emotional and physical well-being.
So what are some of the signs that people can look for in their own lives that they can realize, I'm in a place where I might be a little stuck here, I might start to be getting numb. Give us some like pointers to how to recognize this. What are some signs?
So some common signs: lack of motivation, that is a huge one. Difficulty connecting with others or losing interest in those activities that once brought us a lot of joy. Feeling detached from ourselves, from our lives. Distorted sense of time, like I mentioned, that dissociation, that distorted sense of time, flat, blank stares, a dampened sense of excitement. All our emotions are just minimized, essentially. Some common causes of that is stress, burnout, grief, trauma, loss, depression, anxiety, emotional overload, and certain side effects of medications even can cause a little bit of emotional numbness as well.
Okay. So in addition to those things you just mentioned, what are some other things that push people to that place of being stuck? Like, how do you end up getting there? What gets you to that emotional numb place?
So in general, feeling stuck is a psychological state when a person feels unable to change, to progress, or escape from their mental or emotional experience. It can reflect a sense of inertia, kind of paralysis, maybe hopelessness, helplessness, usually associated with a lack of control, a lack of clarity in how to move forward in their life. So our emotions, they are designed to guide us, but sometimes when we carry them for too long, when we suppress them for too long, we start to feel that paralyzation. People feel stuck due to failure, fear of failure, anxiety, depression, overwhelmingness, whether it's perfectionism, trauma, comparing ourselves to one another, an overall resistance to change, feeling disconnected from our values, an unfulfilling job situation, compounded with lack of clarity, lack of support, lack of resources. And so there is a famous psychologist, Carl Jung, who once said, "What you resist, it persists." So in other words, once we have this resistance to change, when we fail to embrace and really process our emotions, we feel stuck, we feel paralyzed.
So you mentioned earlier that one of your passions is working with athletes, and it makes me think, do athletes get in a position like this where they feel stuck? Maybe you can give us an example to kind of help us visualize what you're talking about here. Can you do that?
Absolutely, yes. That is a very common thing. There's a common phenomenon known as the yips. And so whether it's in softball or baseball, that example of something very fundamental that you've done a million times becomes impossible. It's just as if that skill is gone. So in softball or baseball, throwing the ball, it's just as if it's kind of stuck. You're not able to do that thing. The most common example I also mention with my clients is, if you all have seen the Olympics, Simone Biles. She experienced the yips when she was unable to perform, compete. She is the most winning athlete of all time, and all of a sudden, her skills were gone. It was as if she was stuck in her own mind, dealing with so much anxiety and overwhelming pressure that all of her basic skills were out the window, that she felt unsafe at that point and just stuck in her situation.
That's very good. So when we get to a place where we start to detect that we're feeling numb, maybe we're getting stuck, we're isolated, kind of feeling that kind of weird place, what are some suggestions that you can give us to push out of that, to get unstuck, so to speak, to kind of help us reset our emotional sensitivity?
So the first thing is acknowledging what we are going through. Big thing I talk with my clients about is labeling it, recognizing what we're going through without judging ourselves for it. To be able to label it, to recognize, understand what we're experiencing in the first place, helps us to give a little bit of that power. It takes that power back from that grip it has on our lives. When we label what we're experiencing, that anxious feeling, the depression, it loses a little bit of that grip it has on our lives. Another thing is doing things that people have been practicing for centuries that we forget to focus on, which is movement. Whether it's yoga, Pilates, lifting weights, cardio, does not matter how you move your body. Get out there and move your body. Doing deep breathing exercises, grounding exercises, focusing on eating nutritious foods, staying hydrated, getting well rested. A lot of those things that we don't focus on enough allow us to just reconnect with our body and mind. Another thing is creating small sparks of self-love or self-joy. It's cliche, but something I preach a lot is self-care. doing something small each and every day to take care of ourselves, getting back into activities that we once enjoyed. A lot of it is action before motivation, that we won't feel that same initial joy to begin with, but if we kind of force ourselves to do those activities we once loved, we'll start to build back that resilience a little bit and to rebuild that joy again. And connecting with others, that is a huge one. Talking to family, talking to friends, talking to your community. It can feel very isolating and like we are alone in this, that no one understands what we're going through, but being able to just talk to someone opens that up, that we are not carrying that burden alone anymore. And the last thing, seeking professional help. That is the major one, obviously why we're all here. Therapy can provide tools to process those emotions that you're going through. It can help break unhelpful cycles and help restore your perspective on the situation. Whether you want to learn more about yourself, whether you're experiencing these symptoms and these signs of emotional numbness or feeling stuck, it is a great place to go and to talk to someone to just let it all out. I have a lot of clients tell me how powerful it is to just tell someone and it goes nowhere. That it just leaves that room, it stays in that room, and you don't have to carry it with you anymore. I think therapy is a great option to reconnect with yourself.
That's excellent, and that's, again, part of the reason we're highlighting counselors in our community is so that you have faces and names that you can contact if you get to a place where you need some professional help. Any final words of encouragement you can give to someone out there that might be feeling like, I'm just numb, like, how am I in this place and what can I do? Any kind of challenge us there a little bit.
Yes, emotional numbness is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you have been carrying far too much for far too long. You deserve to feel alive, connected, and present in your own life, and you're absolutely able to do that with support. You're not always going to feel stuck. There are ways to feel unstuck. It starts with one small shift. Don't feel like you have to do a total 180 and overwhelm your body in the opposite direction, but start with a small shift. Check in with yourself, journal, talk to someone, schedule a counseling session. Small things add to a big impact.
That's great. I think one of the things you highlighted is there's so many things that we know that we ought to do. Mm-hmm. But just sometimes we don't do those, and you have to kind of force yourself into some of these very productive and healthy behaviors. So thank you so much. This has been helpful, I think, especially for those of us feeling a little overwhelmed right now with emotional sensitivity, to where we're getting to a point where we don't want to just completely lose our emotional connectivity to the world. So take care of yourselves is what I'm saying, right?
Yes,
take care
absolutely.
of yourselves. So again, Tiffany's information, her contact information is on the back of the bulletin. She'll also be out in the Commons afterwards. If you just want to say thank you, or if you have a question for her, or if you want to schedule a session, you can find her. And I would also encourage you to check out her socials. Talks with Therapist Tiff. She's got some really encouraging videos on her Instagram and TikTok. I would encourage you to check those out. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you so
really
much.
Delightful having you, and thank you for sharing with us. Would you express your appreciation to Tiffany? Thank you so much.